Howdy y'all, today I am bringing you a Tekkit tutorial on how to set up and house your nuclear reactor. This will be a very simple setup and housing because I'm not going to show you how to use switches to turn it on or off. So let's get started with some of the advantages and disadvantages of using nuclear power. Some of the advantages are, especially if you're going to be on a multiplayer server, is that if you forget to turn it off when you're done, then it's okay, it's not going to explode while you're gone. However, some of the disadvantages are you do have to find uranium to keep them on, and if you group too much uranium together, it can overheat and explode. So let's move on to what the reactor looks like. This is what one looks like without any chambers added. And this is what one looks like when you add all 6 chambers to it. Although you don't have to have 6 chambers on it to run, I suggest that you add all 6 of them because it gives you the most space on the inside to add uranium and cooling cells. So if we click in here, we will see we have very little room, and if we click into this one, we see we have a lot more room. So now let's move on to the housing. This is how I suggest you house your reactor, and this is how I'll always house mine. This is a 9 by 9 by 8 reinforced stone room. And I suggest that you use reinforced stone room versus other blocks because in the event of the explosion, then the explosion is less because the reinforced stone will take it better. Now this is what it should look like on the inside without any wires or anything added to it except for the reactor itself. And you do want it levitating 1 block above the ground, not only to have the water underneath it, but also so that it is perfectly centered in your room. So now if we move on to the next room, this is what it looks like once you add your wires. And although you don't have to have glass fiber optic wires, you do have to have a high voltage wire. I suggest that you use glass fiber optic wires, however, because they are the most efficient out of all the wires. Now, you do have to have blocks around, like as you can see here, I have glass around them, because water cannot touch these wires. However, it doesn't have to be glass, it can be any block of your choosing. I just so happen to like glass the most. So now if we move on to here, that's weird, okay. If we move on to here, we will see what the room looks like in its completion with water and everything. This reactor is actually on right now, and the reason you need the water is not only for cooling purposes, but also so if it unfortunately explodes, then you can have a lesser explosion because the water will dampen it. So now if we go on the outside, will show you what this one looks like when you click in. So if you can just go here and click into it, and you will see what it's supposed to look like. This is how I suggest laying out your reactor on the inside because this is the most stable one that I found, and this is the one I always use. Although you can add more uranium cells together and have more power out, however, I wouldn't suggest doing that if you're not going to be there because it can very easily overheat and explode. So when you click into these units, you can see that it is on. And really only 2 units is really all you're going to need, and these are MFSUs. And again, I wouldn't suggest using more than 2 because you're probably never going to run through more than that power. Now, some of the other tutorials I found online suggested that you house your reactor like this. I wouldn't house it like this, not only because you can't add water around it, but if it explodes, then you will, as I will show you, you will have a much greater explosion. And some of them say you can house it like this. However, there is room for water in here. It is somewhat better. Again, if you're going to spend all the resources and everything to make a reactor, I definitely would just house it the way I do. But as you will see, it is actually the safest way to house your reactor with a single layer of reinforced stone. And also some tutorials say use 2 or 3 layers of reinforced stone. I guess you can, but that is just really expensive, especially if you're doing it in survival mode. So let's move on to actually what the explosions will look like. The first one I'm showing you, I believe, is how I suggest that you house your reactor. And actually looking at it, yes it is. So this is how I suggest you house it. And I'm going to purposefully set this off. And this is, again, something you would not want to do. And actually, if you grouped all the uranium like I'm going to do here, then you would actually make your MFSUs explode. So let's go ahead and add 2 rows of uranium. Again, you would never want to do this. You would never want to add this much uranium together, not only, again, because your MFSUs will explode, but also it is going to very quickly overheat and explode. And for each explosion, I will be adding the same amount of uranium, which will be the 2 rows. So actually, we can go ahead and just stand in here, and you will see that it is starting to smoke. As you can tell, the water is helping the fire from starting. But again, it's not going to help it for very much longer because it's not going to actually cool it for very long. And, oh, there we go, okay. So I planted the trees just so you could see some more of the damage. Now, as you can see, most of the trees actually turned out okay. It didn't seem to do a whole bunch of damage, even though there is a chunk error right there. But as you can see, very little damage was actually done. So now let's move on to what one just looks like, just plain Jane out in the open without anything around it. And of course, if you're gonna roll your dice, then goodness gracious, it is an expensive gamble to take. So let's go ahead and start adding the uranium in. Oh wait, I need to take this out because I need to get all the uranium lined up first so I can quickly add it. Because this will go off fairly quickly because there is no cooling element to it like we had before with the water. And again, I would definitely not suggest you do this with your reactor. On the account, it will, have a devastating explosion, as you will see. So, there. And this one will actually go off fairly quickly as well. Okay. So, see, there's a fire now. They used to have lava come out of the bottom, and if you see the lava, or if you see it actually on fire, then it's too late. You might as well start running because it's just going to explode. There's nothing you can do about it. However, if you do see it start smoking, you can stop it by just taking the uranium out. And as you see the lava, you see lava, it's too late. Oop, oh man, it messed up my... Wow, it was a bigger explosion than I thought. Okay, well, I was going to show you what it did to just stone, but as you can see, my stone example got wiped out by the force of the other explosion. Okay, so let's move on to some of the other suggestions that I could just set it off still. So actually, I will go ahead and set it off. Well, no, I won't. Okay. Yeah, as you can see, it does a lot of damage, so you definitely want to have it housed. So now if we move on, this is what it looks like with a very minimal housing, and as you will see, it is still very devastating. So let me actually do this so that I can just easily... Okay. There we go. Okay, just adding the uranium now. And you can actually hear it turn on, so it makes kind of a cool sound. And we will stand back and watch this one explode as well. And again, the trees are just so you can see the amount of damage done. Although it's going to do about the same amount of damage as the other one did. Oh, come on, reactor. Okay, here it goes. As you can see, it's starting to smoke and very rapidly heating up. And okay, I thought it caused lava right there. Oh, yeah. So as you can see, although it is less, it is still fairly devastating. Again, I definitely suggest you housing it the first way I showed you. So now let's move on to the other suggestion. This suggestion will be even less damage. However, if this was like underneath your house, it would still be pretty bad. So let's actually go ahead and click into this one and get all the uranium lined up. Okay, there we go. Okay, there we go. Okay. So now this one will heat up fairly quickly as well, and we'll actually see it start to smoke there, as you can see. And of course, again, if you see your reactor smoking, definitely do take out the uranium cells, and it will stop the reaction, and then it'll all start to cool down. Also, if you have it laid out the way I showed you, oh, there it goes. The cooling cells and everything will actually heal themselves over time. As you can see, it is still a lesser explosion. However, if this was underneath your house, it would still be fairly devastating. So let me pick up these uranium, and let's see. I didn't have any more examples, but I did want to set one off in this town, just so you can again see the true impact, and it will just completely wipe out the town. And one thing also that you can do if you want to play around with this, if you go into a normal generated world, sometimes it'll just take the grass off the dirt block, and it just looks really cool. Kind of like they do in real life. Which, from my understanding, these actually work the same way in real life, and that's one of the reasons you have to add the water, because in real life you have to add water to nuclear power, but I don't know, I just think it's just to dampen the impact of the explosion. So, these poor NPCs. Actually, let's put some more uranium so it actually happens faster. Oh, fail. Okay, there we go. And then, of course, the more uranium you have in there, the faster the reaction will happen, and the faster it will heat up. Poor NPCs, dummies walking around. Now, if you have it set up the way I do, you can actually, there it goes. You can actually be in the reactor room, although some of the Tekkit places tell you not to. I've been in there tons of times when I was in survival mode. And so as you see, except for this, I guess, chunk error right here, that it is really devastating. Holy crap, it just wiped out this entire village. And this is what would happen if you had it improperly housed underneath your house. But of course, as I'll click back into the reactor, if you have it set up like I do, then you'll never have a problem with it unless somebody comes in and tampers with them. Again, as you can see, this is how you should definitely have it set up, and it is definitely the most stable. So, if there's any other tutorials you'd like me to do or you would like to see, let me know and I will do them. Of course, a rating is always wanted and appreciated. And so, I'll see y'all next time. Bye.